Ever feel like your greatest battle isn't out there but in here, inside your own mind? Do you wonder why some people rise when others fall? Even though they face the same pain, the same pressure, the same world. What if real strength has nothing to do with what you lift, but everything to do with what you carry inside, silently, every single day? When most people think of strength, they think of sweat, they think of muscle, speed, endurance, they imagine lifting more, pushing harder, running farther. But real strength, the kind that defines the course of your life, it doesn't come from your arms or your legs. It comes from your mind. Real strength is invisible. It's the quiet choice to stand tall when everything in you wants to fold. It's the silent war inside when fear and doubt come knocking and you refuse to let them out. It's the ability to walk forward even when your legs are trembling. And it's the voice inside that whispers, keep going, when everything else is screaming, stop. See, this kind of strength is not loud. It doesn't show up with fireworks or applause. It shows up in moments no one else sees. At 5 a.m. when you rise without motivation. At midnight when you choose discipline over comfort. In that split second when you want to give up but don't. And here's the part most people never understand. Mental strength is not a gift, it's a decision. It's not something you inherit, it's something you forge. You build it the hard way through struggle, through repetition, through pain. Every time you face a challenge and choose to keep going, you lay another brick in the foundation. Every time you sit with discomfort and don't run, you strengthen your core. It's not sexy, it's not quick, but it's real. Think about the most resilient minds in human history. The leaders, the warriors, the visionaries. Do you think they never felt fear, never tasted failure? Of course they did. What made them different wasn't what happened to them. It was how they chose to respond. They trained themselves to think differently. They rewired their mental reactions to setbacks, to loss, to rejection. They didn't beg life to be easier, they trained themselves to become stronger. They didn't blame the storm, they learned how to sail in it. And that's the choice you have today, to take your pain and make it power. To take your failures and make them fuel. Buddha once said, what we think, we become. And that's not just ancient philosophy, that's neuroscience. Your mind is plastic. It can change. It does change. Every thought you think either strengthens you or weakens you. Every belief you repeat becomes part of your identity. So ask yourself, what are you rehearsing in your mind every day? Are you building courage or repeating fear? If your internal dialogue is filled with hesitation, doubt, blame, don't be surprised when your life reflects those same patterns. But if you rewire your mind to default to resilience, to discipline, to focus, then nothing will shake you for long. You might bend, but you won't break. Mental strength isn't about ignoring pain or pretending you're fine. It's about facing your reality with grit. It's about knowing the discomfort is part of the process and choosing to lean into it. Every setback becomes data. Every rejection becomes redirection. Every obstacle becomes training. That's why the strongest people aren't always the loudest. They're the ones who've walked through fire and didn't scream. The ones who've fallen and risen 1,000 times. The ones who don't just survive, they evolve. This podcast isn't about temporary motivation. It's not about getting hyped up for 5 minutes and forgetting who you are tomorrow. This is about something deeper, something lasting. It's about becoming mentally conditioned, emotionally disciplined, relentlessly focused. Because in the end, no one hands you strength. The world doesn't owe you resilience. You earn it. You build it. Thought by thought. Choice by choice. Hour by hour. And so we continue, because once you shift your perspective, the next step is taking charge of the voice inside. The mind doesn't just influence the body, it leads it. Every move, every response, every habit, it all starts in thought. And that's why mastering your inner dialogue isn't optional, it's everything. But let's be clear, Rewiring your thoughts is not something that happens by chance. It's not passive. It doesn't just click into place one morning because you read a quote or felt motivated for 5 minutes. No, reprogramming your mind is intentional. It starts with awareness, with catching yourself in the moment when those old thoughts sneak in. When your mind says, I can't, you interrupt. You challenge it. You say, what if I can? When doubt begins to whisper, you don't let it finish its sentence. You cut in with certainty. I will find a way. Language matters. Because the words you speak to yourself, those silent whispers, shape your perception. And that perception, it becomes your reality. Over time, the things you tell yourself aren't just thoughts. They become instructions, orders, truths. The ancient samurai knew this long before science ever proved it. They didn't just train their bodies, they trained their minds. They practiced something called Katsujinka, the life-giving sword. But it wasn't just about technique or combat. It was about a mindset, a philosophy. They trained themselves to be still in the face of fear, to accept the inevitability of death so they could live and fight without hesitation. Because if you've already accepted every possible outcome, nothing can control you. You stop fearing the results. You stop being manipulated by uncertainty. That's true power. Their greatest weapon wasn't the blade. It was the way they saw the world. And you can develop that same strength. Because your mind can be trained in the exact same way. It starts by noticing your patterns, challenging assumptions, replacing hesitation with clarity, visualizing success not as wishful thinking but as something expected, earned, inevitable. When your mind becomes a fortress of resilience, your actions begin to align. Your body follows. Your energy shifts. Because real strength, uncheckable, undeniable strength, doesn't start in the muscles. It starts in thought. And once you master that inner voice, everything else begins to fall into place. Here's the truth few people understand. Confidence is not something you're born with. It's not something certain people just have. It's something you build. Brick by brick, day by day, through repeated effort, through deliberate thought, through refusing to let failure define you. Most people wait to feel confident before they act. That's the trap. They think confidence comes first. But the truth, it's the other way around. Action comes first. You don't wait to feel ready. You move while you're uncertain. You speak up while your voice trembles. You take the step before the fear disappears. And what happens then? You gain proof. You gain experience. You build confidence not from thin air, but from evidence. It's like building a wall, one stone at a time. Every action is a new layer. Every moment of courage adds to the structure. Over time, what used to terrify you becomes your baseline. What once felt impossible becomes routine. Aristotle said it best, we are what we repeatedly do. You don't become brave by thinking about courage. You become brave by doing the thing again and again until courage isn't something you need to summon. It's just who you are. Confidence works the same way. It's not gifted. It's not granted. And it sure isn't effortless. It's earned. Through hardship. Through persistence. Through those quiet battles when no one is watching but you choose to show up anyway. Psychologists call this the self-efficacy loop. The more you act, the more you prove to yourself that you can. And the more proof you gain, the more your belief grows. It's a cycle, a powerful, reinforcing cycle. This is why the most confident people aren't fearless. They're not immune to doubt. They're simply experienced at moving forward despite it, and in doing so, they've trained their brain to see themselves differently, to see themselves as capable, as strong, as unstoppable. So we return to the voice inside, that quiet narrator shaping your every step. Because after all, action builds confidence. But words define the direction. The mind believes what it hears most. Not what's true, not what's logical, just what's repeated. And if what's repeated is hesitation, If your inner dialogue is soaked in self-doubt and quiet defeat, then don't be surprised when confidence feels like a stranger. You can't build belief with the bricks of self-criticism. The way you talk to yourself, it's either your greatest weapon or your deepest wound. You have to stop whispering uncertainty and start declaring clarity. Instead of saying, I hope I can, say, I will. Instead of thinking, I'm not good enough, say, I'm getting stronger every single day. These are not empty affirmations. These are commands, orders, rewiring cues for your brain. Your words don't just echo in your head, they create the atmosphere in which your entire mind operates. They shape perception, and perception, that becomes your truth. But confidence doesn't only come from the words we say about the future. Sometimes, it comes from what we remember. From what we've already overcome. Reflection is powerful. Confidence isn't just forward-facing, it's anchored in everything you've already survived. The obstacles you once thought would break you but didn't. The challenges you weren't sure you could handle but did. Most people obsess over their failures. They keep mental scorecards of every time they stumbled. But a disciplined mind, it does the opposite. It stores success. It remembers victory. It builds on evidence that says, I've done hard things before. I can do this again. So when fear starts to whisper, you have something to say back. When doubt shows up, you counter it with proof. Because your past is not just memory, it's fuel, it's ammunition. It's undeniable evidence that you're more capable than your fear suggests. Aristotle taught it. Modern psychology confirms it. Confidence is built through action but solidified through reflection, and constantly reinforced by the words we choose. The strongest people know this. Confidence is not a mood. It's not a passing feeling. It is a conscious decision, a habit, a daily practice. It's the choice to believe, even when belief feels shaky. It's the decision to move forward, especially when every part of you wants to hold back. And once you begin speaking to yourself with purpose, once you act, reflect, reframe, something powerful happens. The world starts to mirror that belief. The outer catches up with the inner, not because the world changed, but because you did. And still life will challenge you. Setbacks are inevitable. Failure is part of the deal. No one escapes it. No one moves through this life untouched by adversity. But the difference between those who rise and those who stay stuck it's not the pain, it's the perspective. Mental strength is not about avoiding struggle. It's about reframing it. Looking at adversity and saying, there's something in here for me, not a curse, a curriculum. Every hardship, every rejection, every broken planet carries the seed of growth. But only if you're trained to look for it. The Stoic philosopher Seneca saw this clearly. He believed that suffering wasn't always about the pain itself but about the mind's refusal to accept what is. He wrote, difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor strengthens the body. To him, pain wasn't the enemy, resistance was. Because the moment we stop fighting the reality of struggle, we start learning from it. We stop fearing it and we begin to use it. This mindset shift, it's not just philosophy, it's science. Modern psychology calls it cognitive reframing, the process of consciously reinterpreting adversity. Changing the story. A failure doesn't have to mean, I'm not enough. It can mean, this is where I get better. A rejection doesn't mean you're worthless. It could mean, this wasn't for me and that's okay. The meaning you assign determines the power it holds. That's the pivot. That's the control. The mentally weak, they let struggle define them. The mentally strong, they let it refine them. Even Japanese philosophy echoes this truth. Kintsugi, the art of repairing broken pottery with gold. Not hiding the cracks but honoring them. Not discarding the broken but making it more beautiful than before. So what if the cracks aren't flaws at all? What if they're proof you endured? Visible markers of growth. The philosophy of kintsugi teaches us something radical. What's broken isn't shameful. It's sacred. The scars are not hidden. They're highlighted, embraced, turned into part of the story. That's how the strongest minds operate. They don't erase their failures. They own them. They don't try to forget the struggle, they use it. Every scar is a sentence in their story. Every setback becomes a symbol of resilience. And to build that kind of mindset, one that doesn't crumble under pressure but sharpens, you need practice. Not perfection. Practice. Start with 3 key habits. First, when difficulty strikes, pause. Don't react on impulse. Don't run. Don't blame. Just stop, breathe, and ask, what is this teaching me? Instead of, why is this happening to me? One question leads to wisdom. The other leads to self-pity. Second, rewrite the narrative. Change the inner script. You are not a victim of your struggle. You are the sculptor, chiseling yourself in real time. So instead of thinking, this proves I'm not good enough, tell yourself, this proves I'm becoming stronger. You're not broken. You're in progress. And third, collect your lessons. When you overcome something big or small, document it. Write it down, make it visible, keep a log of your victories. Why? Because in moments of doubt, your mind will look for proof, and you'll have it. You'll have undeniable evidence that you faced the fire before and walked through it stronger. Seneca saw struggle as a sharpening stone. Not an accident, not a punishment, a tool. Psychology now echoes the same truth. How we frame a challenge determines how we experience it. And the art of kintsugi, it reminds us, what is broken is not worthless. It is more valuable because it endured. So the lesson becomes clear. What happens to you does not define you. How you interpret it does. You can carry your hardship like a burden, or you can stand on it like a stepping stone. The choice, it's always yours. And here's where discipline enters the scene. Because that interpretation, the reframing, the reflection, the mental strengthening, it doesn't happen by accident. It happens through discipline. Discipline is the bridge. The bridge between goals and results, between potential and reality. It's not about how you feel, it's about what you do, regardless of how you feel. Most people wait for motivation, wait for perfect timing, wait for the mood to be right. But the mentally strong, they act, not because they always want to, but because they've trained themselves to follow through, even when it's hard, even when it's dull, even when no one's watching. Because here's the truth. Success is not forged in excitement. It's built in silence. In the quiet, repetitive acts of commitment, over and over again. Monimus Rufus, a lesser-known Stoic philosopher, saw discipline as essential not just for achievement, but for freedom. He argued that a person who can't control their impulses is a prisoner, not of the world but of themselves. Their emotions, their urges, their distractions, they are in control. And that's not freedom, that's chaos. To Monimus, self-control wasn't deprivation, it was liberation, the ability to act with purpose instead of being a slave to fleeting feelings. Modern science supports this too. The prefrontal cortex, your brain's discipline center, actually strengthens through use. It's like a muscle. The more often you override temptation, the more often you follow through on what matters, the easier it gets. So when you make a commitment and stick to it, you're not just completing a task, you're training your brain. You're reinforcing discipline as a default setting. That's why the disciplined don't rely on willpower or motivation. They've built systems that make action automatic, systems that turn effort into rhythm. But here's the secret. Mastery isn't about intensity. It's about consistency, over time, with care, with intention. Bruce Lee captured this truth when he said, "I do not fear the man who has practiced 10,000 kicks once, but I fear the man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times." Because that kind of practice, that's not physical, it's mental. It's ritual. It's repetition with purpose. And it leads to mastery not just of skill, but of self. To build that kind of uncheckable self-discipline, anchor yourself in 3 principles. First, remove negotiation. If something aligns with your goals, it's not optional. Don't debate it. Don't bargain with your excuses. It's non-negotiable. Second, lower the activation energy. If the task feels overwhelming, simplify it. Break it down. Start small. Momentum is born from motion, not perfection. So once you've stopped negotiating with your excuses, once you've learned how to break big goals into small, doable steps, there's one final shift that changes everything. Stop treating discipline as something you do, start living it as who you are. Because here's the truth. You don't rise by willpower alone. You rise by identity. This is the third key. Create identity-based habits. Instead of telling yourself, I should work harder, say, I'm the kind of person who follows through. Instead of I need to be more disciplined, say, I am disciplined. I show up, I keep going. Why? Because identity drives behavior. When you see discipline as a task, it's easy to skip. But when you see it as part of who you are, you don't break the chain because doing so would break character. The Stoic philosopher Musonius Rufus believed discipline was not just about order, it was the bedrock of self-mastery. That without discipline, no other virtue could truly stand. Neuroscience supports this deeply. Discipline, like a muscle, strengthens with repetition. And when you pair repetition with identity, you're not just building habits, you're reshaping who you believe yourself to be. Bruce Lee lived this truth. He didn't chase variety, he chased mastery, not by doing 10,000 things once but by doing one thing 10,000 times. His legacy, proof that greatness isn't glamorous. It's consistent. It's earned through daily commitment, especially when it's inconvenient. Their lesson is unmistakable. Discipline isn't about waiting until you feel ready. It's about acting anyway. The mentally strong don't move when the mood is right. They move because they've trained their system to move. Whether it's raining, whether it's hard, whether no one's watching, they show up because that's who they are. But here's the next layer. It's not just about what you do. It's also about how you feel while doing it. Because emotions are powerful. They can lift you ... or bury you. They can move you forward ... or chain you in place. And this is where most people lose the battle, not in action, but in emotion. The emotionally reactive live on a roller coaster. They work when they're motivated. They quit when they're discouraged. They believe their emotions are commands, but they're not. They're signals, data, feedback, nothing more. The mentally strong know, emotions are not dictators, they're indicators. True strength isn't about ignoring emotion. It's about learning how to use it without being consumed by it. Zeno of Citium, the founder of Stoicism, taught this beautifully. He believed that external events don't disturb us, our interpretation of those events does. Setback isn't what makes you angry. It's how you label that setback. An insult doesn't control you. It's the meaning you attach that creates the sting. So what do the mentally strong do? They don't suppress emotions, they observe them. They pause, they choose, they respond. And modern psychology, especially cognitive behavioral therapy (CBT), backs this up. CBT is built on the foundation that thoughts shape emotions, and emotions shape actions. Change your thoughts, and you change your emotional reality. Think about it. Two people face the same problem. One panics, the other plans. One spirals, the other steadies. It's not the problem. It's the programming ... and emotional control. It doesn't mean becoming cold or indifferent. It means learning how to channel emotions, how to guide them, like a warrior guides a blade. Miyamoto Musashi, the legendary samurai, once said that strength didn't come from the absence of emotion but from the ability to use it skillfully. Fear, it sharpens awareness. Anger, it can drive focus. Frustration, it fuels growth if you're trained, because that's what mental strength really is. Not denying your feelings, but mastering the response. So how do you train emotional discipline? Practice 3 things. First, create space before reacting. When something hits you, pause. Don't fire back. Don't lash out. Breathe. Let the wave settle before choosing your next move. Second, reframe emotional triggers. When stress hits, ask, what's the challenge here? When failure shows up, ask, what's the lesson? Replace the story of attack with a story of opportunity. Third, train your default reaction to pressure. Condition your inner voice to say, this is growth. This is how I level up. Over time, that becomes your reflex, not panic, but power. Zeno taught that emotional control brings peace. CBT shows that thought rewires feeling. Musashi proved that emotion isn't the enemy, it's the blade. Their lesson is crystal clear. The mentally weak react. The mentally strong, they respond. They don't suppress emotions, they train them. And more importantly, they don't let a fleeting feeling dictate a permanent outcome. That's the line between those who lead their lives and those who get dragged by them. Because the moment emotions take over, the mind loses control. And when control is lost, momentum fades. Choices become reactions, growth becomes chaos. But here's the truth that changes everything: the mind is not fixed. Your intelligence, your skill, your grit, none of it is static, none of it is locked in. It evolves, it expands, it sharpens if you put it to work. Mental strength isn't about what you're born with. It's about what you build. Those who are mentally fragile, they think talent is predetermined, that failure is a full stop. That struggle means they've reached their edge. But the wise, they know the opposite is true. They know the brain is like a muscle, one that only strengthens when it's pushed, stretched, tested. This isn't a new idea. Over 2,000 years ago, the philosopher Heraclitus observed something profound. Everything flows. Nothing stands still. He saw life, the mind, even identity not as solid structures, but as rivers in motion. You are never the same person twice. Every experience adds, every thought reshapes, every effort redefines who you are becoming. So when those with a strong mindset face failure, they don't crumble. They nod. They say, this is part of it, because they understand. Failure is not the opposite of growth, it's the evidence that growth is happening. They expect setbacks. They use them. They don't fear difficulty, they recognize it as the price of becoming more. Modern psychology has a name for this. Growth mindset, the belief that ability is not fixed, but developed through effort, through learning, through relentless persistence. Psychologist Carol Dweck, a leader in this field, found that those who believe they can grow actually do, not because they're more talented, but because they lean into the storm instead of hiding from it. Here's the core difference. People with a fixed mindset, they avoid challenge. They fear failure, because to them, failure means I'm not good enough. But people with a growth mindset, they seek out challenge. They invite the uncomfortable. Because to them, failure means I'm getting better. The difference isn't in skill, it's in story. It's in how they think. But you don't just wake up with a growth mindset. It has to be trained, crafted, reinforced, over time. So how do you build it? Start with 3 practices. First, change your inner dialogue. When you hear, I can't do this, add a word, yet. When your brain says, I'm not good at this, respond with, I'm learning. It seems small, but that shift, it reshapes your identity. It creates room for progress. Second, normalize failure. Don't fear it, expect it, let it teach you. The most successful people in the world haven't failed less than you, they've failed more. They just didn't stop. Failure doesn't make you broken, it makes you brave. And third, expose yourself to discomfort. Growth doesn't live inside the comfort zone, it waits just beyond it. So push yourself, stretch your limits, seek the unfamiliar. Not recklessly but with intention. Then bomb, because when you do hard things often enough, they stop feeling hard. They become normal. They become part of who you are. And that's where transformation begins. Think of Leonardo da Vinci, one of the greatest minds in history. Not born a genius, not a product of luck, but of obsession, of trial, of curiosity, of effort. He sketched thousands of imperfect drawings before creating his masterpieces. He dissected real human bodies to understand anatomy, not for fame, but because he was consumed by the hunger to learn. His genius wasn't given. He earned it through discomfort, through discipline, through a mindset that rejected limitation. Heraclitus taught that change is constant. Neuroscience proves that the brain is always adapting. Da Vinci showed that greatness is not a gift, it's a pursuit. And the lesson they leave us is this: mental strength is not innate. It is built, not in massive leaps, not in overnight inspiration, but in consistency. And so we arrive at the final pillar that holds everything else together: consistency. The quiet superpower. The one that separates the motivated from the disciplined, the inspired from the unstoppable. Because when everything else fades, when the spark disappears, when the motivation runs dry, what's left? Your ability to show up, day after day. Rain or shine, ready or not. This is the essence of mental strength, the choice to continue, not because you feel like it, but because you've trained yourself to follow through anyway. The mentally weak chase the highs, they chase motivation. They wait for the perfect conditions, but as soon as resistance shows up, so do the excuses. Their energy disappears as quickly as it arrived. But those who are truly strong, they understand that real progress isn't about intensity. It's about persistence. Aristotle said it plainly. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act but a habit. It's not about those grand moments when you give everything. It's about the systems you create so that progress happens even on the days you don't feel like showing up. That's the difference. The strongest minds don't hope they'll feel inspired. They build routines. They build structure. They build rhythm. And science, it backs this up. Neuroscience shows that the brain craves repetition. Every time you repeat an action, you're carving deeper neural pathways, making that habit easier to repeat next time. That's how habits become automatic. That's why the world's greatest athletes, creators, and thinkers don't rely on hype. They rely on showing up every single day. Leonardo da Vinci didn't create masterpieces in a fit of inspiration. He created them after thousands of sketches, after years of practice, after he showed up with a sketchbook in his hand even when no one was watching. Kobe Bryant didn't become a legend on talent alone. He became a legend by being in the gym at 4 a.m. while everyone else was still sleeping. He built consistency into his identity. But let's be clear, consistency doesn't mean perfection. This is where most people fall. They think missing one day, slipping once, struggling for a moment means they failed completely. And that thinking, that's the real failure. The mentally strong know better. They follow a simple rule: never miss twice. One off day, it's okay. You're human. 2 in a row. Now it's becoming a pattern. That's where they draw the line. One missed workout. One skipped journal entry. One moment of doubt, it means nothing if you come back strong the next day. The comeback matters more than the slip. So how do you make consistency easier, almost effortless? Start with 3 principles. First, lower the barrier to action. Make starting so easy, your brain has no excuse. If writing a full chapter feels impossible, write a single sentence. If working out for an hour feels heavy, start with 5 minutes. Tiny actions build momentum, and momentum builds belief. Second, track your progress visually. Use a calendar, a journal, a habit tracker. Seeing progress fuels commitment. It reminds you that even on the slow days, you're still moving forward. Third, tie consistency to your identity. Don't say, I'm trying to be disciplined. Say, I'm the kind of person who shows up, no matter what. When showing up becomes part of who you are, it stops feeling like a chore. It becomes the only way you know how to live. Remember, Aristotle said excellence is a habit. Neuroscience proves the brain is wired by what we repeat. And legends like Da Vinci and Kobe Bryant showed us that greatness isn't a lightning strike, it's a steady burn. Their lesson, success is not defined by intensity. It's defined by the ability to keep going, especially when no one's clapping. Especially when it's hard. Especially when it's quiet. Because in the end, the mentally strong don't rely on motivation. They rely on discipline, on systems, on the powerful truth that progress belongs to those who show up again and again. But let's not forget something important here. No one becomes great alone. Even the strongest minds in history, they didn't develop in isolation. They grew by learning from others. From mentors, from books, from the wisdom of those who came before them. Because mental strength isn't just willpower. It's also about insight, about absorbing wisdom, about accelerating growth by learning from the right voices. Those who try to figure everything out alone, they waste years. They repeat mistakes that could have been avoided in weeks with the right guidance. The wise don't make that mistake. And Seneca said it best, we learn not in school, but in life. Because for him and for every mind forged in fire, real wisdom didn't live in theory. It lived in practice, in experience, in watching how others rose, how they fell, how they made choices under pressure. To the mentally strong, wisdom is not something they need to invent from scratch. It's something they can gather, study, refine, and apply. Like sharpening a blade passed down from the generation before. They don't just absorb ideas, they seek out great minds both living and long gone. They look to philosophers, leaders, creators, and warriors. Not for worship, but for instruction. And modern neuroscience agrees, the brain learns best through modeling. We observe, we absorb, we mirror, we adopt new ways of thinking by watching others who've mastered what we're still learning. That's why mentorship is one of the most powerful accelerators of growth. A mentor is not just someone older or wiser. A mentor is a mirror. They show you what's possible. They help you avoid the holes they once fell into. They cut through your excuses and point you toward the road you've been avoiding. Every great figure in history had one. Alexander the Great had Aristotle. Marcus Aurelius had Rusticus. Warren Buffett had Benjamin Graham. Even the strongest minds seek guidance, because strength doesn't mean going it alone. It means being smart enough to learn from those who've walked before you. But mentorship doesn't always look like a person sitting across from you. Sometimes it's a book. Sometimes it's a podcast. Sometimes it's a powerful conversation that cracks open your worldview in a single moment. Every time you expose yourself to new ideas, you stretch the mind. And like any muscle, that stretch is what causes it to grow. So how do you use this? How do you integrate this wisdom into your own life? First, seek out mentors. Whether it's someone you meet, or someone you read, or someone you listen to, study them. Study how they think, how they act, how they respond under pressure. Learn their mindset. Steal their lessons. Second, curate your circle. Surround yourself with people who elevate your thinking, people who challenge you. Environments where intelligence, discipline, and ambition are normal, because the mind adapts to its surroundings. Choose yours wisely. Third, become a lifelong student. The moment you think you know it all, growth dies, so stay open, stay curious. Stay humble enough to keep learning. Seneca was right, wisdom is found in life. Neuroscience proves the brain learns fastest through modeling, and history shows us clearly the greatest minds didn't grow in isolation, they grew in communion. In community, through exposure, through humility. And the lesson is loud and clear. Mental strength is not built alone. It's built with knowledge, with reflection, with learning from the ones who've already done what you're trying to do. You don't have to figure everything out by yourself. The fastest way to grow is to stand on the shoulders of giants. But here's the final truth. Even when armed with wisdom, life will test you. Adversity is not an interruption. It's not an obstacle. It's a test of who you are becoming. Because the world doesn't break the mentally strong. It reveals them. Some will retreat in the face of pressure. They'll crumble at the first failure. They'll allow one setback to redefine their entire identity. But others, they rise, because they've trained for this. They understand that struggle is part of the process, that every challenge holds a lesson. That real strength is not built in comfort but in the storm. Epictetus, a man born into slavery who later became one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, knew this truth better than most. He taught that we cannot always control what happens to us, but we can always control how we respond. To Epictetus, resilience wasn't about avoiding suffering. It was about becoming so strong that no suffering could shake the mind. And once again, modern science echoes this ancient truth. Studies show that those who bounce back after failure are luckier. They aren't born with fewer problems. They're just trained to see differently. They don't label failure as final. They label it as feedback. They don't see hardship as proof they're broken. They see it as proof they're being built. The brain itself adapts to struggle. Through a process called stress inoculation, it becomes tougher, more resilient, more ready, each challenge faced and survived. It rewires the brain for strength, because resilience isn't just about surviving the storm. It's about using it, turning the pressure into purpose, the suffering into strength. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in a prison cell, yet walked out stronger, wiser, more grounded than ever. Viktor Frankl, a survivor of the Nazi concentration camps, emerged with a philosophy rooted in meaning, not misery. These men, like so many others who built true resilience, didn't let hardship define them. They redefined hardship. They saw pain not as punishment, but as transformation. They didn't just endure it, they used it. They turned their wounds into wisdom, their suffering into strategy, and their scars into stories of strength. To develop this mindset, this level of mental resilience, you must practice three things. First, shift your perception of struggle. Don't see difficulty as a setback. See it as preparation. Every painful moment is sharpening you. Every challenge is laying down mental armor. You're not being punished. You're being prepared. Second, train your tolerance for discomfort. Those who build mental muscle are not those who hide from stress, but those who face it daily. Small challenges, cold showers, hard conversations, early mornings. They push their limits on purpose because comfort kills strength and resistance builds it. Third, archive your victories. Build a mental library of your comebacks. Every time you survived what you thought would break you, log it. Remember it. Revisit it. Because when the next wave hits, you'll need that reminder. I've made it through worse. I can make it through this. Epictetus knew this. To him, resilience was the mastery of response. And psychology proves that the brain adapts to struggle. Challenge rewires it. And each test you pass makes the next one easier to bear. History has shown us one thing repeatedly. Those who walk through fire come out forged. And the clearest lesson of all. Mental resilience is not a gift, it is a decision. A choice you make when you fall, a choice you make when you rise. It's built in the quiet moments when no one's clapping, when you could quit but don't, when you turn pain into power, and when you choose to stand back up. Every single time life knocks you down, the mentally strong, they don't break, they sharpen. But here's something most people forget: growth is not immediate. Strength doesn't arrive overnight. Excellence doesn't crash into your life with fireworks. It's slow, it's subtle, and it's built on days that feel boring, repetitive, unnoticed. The mentally weak, they want results now. They chase quick wins, and when things don't happen fast, they walk away. But those who are truly strong, they understand. Greatness has its own rhythm. It's not about speed, it's about endurance. Lao Tzu, the ancient Chinese philosopher, said, "Nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished. The tallest trees don't grow in a day. They root deeply, quietly, year after year, until one day they're uncheckable." The mind is no different. A person without patience will always abandon the journey just when it starts to matter. But those who honor patience, who see the long game, they win. Modern science agrees. Studies on delayed gratification show a direct link between long-term success and the ability to resist short-term temptation. You've probably heard of the marshmallow test: children told to wait for a better reward instead of grabbing the one in front of them. The ones who waited, years later they earned more, achieved more, endured more, because they had learned the skill of waiting with purpose. But let's be clear, patience is not passive. It's not about waiting and doing nothing. It's active. It's engaged. It's rooted in trust that every step, every repetition, every quiet hour of effort is shaping something greater. Da Vinci spent years perfecting his work. Michelangelo spent decades on sculptures. Olympians trained for a lifetime for just a few minutes of performance. They didn't demand instant results. They trusted the process. They knew time multiplies effort. The mentally strong, they don't rush transformation. They respect it. They understand that the slow, steady path is the one that actually leads somewhere. So how do you cultivate patience in your own journey? First, measure progress in years, not days. Stop expecting overnight success. Small gains over long stretches are the ones that stick. Second, detach from the obsession with immediate results. Shift your focus from the outcome to the process. Don't fall in love with the reward, fall in love with the work. Because when you focus on the work, you grow. But when you obsess over the result, you quit the moment it doesn't come fast enough. Third, embrace the slow grind. The best things in life, mastery, wisdom, strength, clarity, are built slowly, deliberately, brick by brick. Lao Tzu taught this beautifully. Nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished. Psychology confirms it. Studies on long-term success consistently show that patience is not a weakness, it's a superpower. And history, it shows that the greatest minds never demanded speed. They demanded excellence. The lesson is clear. The mentally strong don't chase shortcuts. They commit to the long road because they know success isn't about how fast you grow. It's about how deeply you root yourself in the process. But here's the thing. Even when you've mastered discipline, even when you've trained resilience, even when you've embraced discomfort and built momentum, there's still one more mountain to climb: peace of mind. Because in today's world, the mind is constantly pulled in 1,000 directions. By distractions, by expectations, by regrets from the past and fears about the future. And those without inner peace, they live in mental chaos, always searching for something outside themselves to finally bring them calm. But they never find it because peace is not out there. It's built within. The mentally strong understand this deeply. Peace is not the absence of struggle. It's the presence of clarity in the middle of it. Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor navigating war, loss, and uncertainty, said it best. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. To him, control over the external world was a mirage. The only true control was within overreaction, overfocus, over state of mind. And when you develop that kind of control, you become unshaken. You don't spiral from criticism. You don't collapse from inconvenience. You remain steady even when the world isn't. Modern neuroscience echoes the wisdom of the Stoics. Studies on mindfulness, meditation, and mental stillness show that a calm brain performs better. Stress lowers, focus sharpens, emotional resilience increases. Because a trained mind stops reacting. It starts observing. It chooses response over reflex. Awareness over impulse. This is why the mentally strong don't let every small thing knock them off course. They've trained their mind to be a refuge, not a battlefield. But let's be clear, inner peace isn't detachment. It's not about withdrawing from life. It's about engaging with clarity, with poise, with intention. Lao Tzu compared peace to water, fluid, flexible, gentle, yet incredibly strong. Water doesn't fight obstacles. It flows, it shapes them, it adapts and endures. The disciplined mind works the same way. It doesn't resist reality. It moves with it, adjusting, aligning, and always returning to its center. So how do you develop this kind of peace? Practice these 3 principles. First, develop the habit of mental stillness. Whether through meditation, journaling, quiet reflection, or simply pausing before you react, train yourself to stop and breathe. That moment of space, that's where clarity lives. Second, let go of what you cannot control. Worrying is wasted energy. Obsession with outcomes is a thief of presence. Focus on what you can influence and release the rest. Third, practice gratitude daily. Peace doesn't come from having everything. It comes from realizing that you already have enough. The mentally strong take time to appreciate what is rather than being consumed by what isn't. Marcus Aurelius believed that strength begins in the mind. Neuroscience confirms that stillness builds resilience. Lao Tzu showed us that peace is not resistance, it's flow. Their message is clear. Mental strength is not just about enduring chaos. It's about remaining calm in its presence. Because the strongest minds are not those who avoid storms. They are the ones who learn how to stand still inside them. And now, perhaps most importantly, mental mastery isn't just about pushing forward blindly. It's about knowing when to pause, to reflect, to course correct. Because growth doesn't happen by accident, and it doesn't happen in a straight line. The strongest minds don't just keep moving. They stop, they examine, they refine. Because without self-reflection, progress becomes guesswork. And without looking inward, the same mistakes keep playing on repeat. But most people avoid this. Why? Because it's uncomfortable. It requires honesty, vulnerability, the willingness to admit, I could do better. They understand something most people don't. Self-reflection is not self-judgment, it's self-mastery. Socrates, one of the greatest minds in history, once said, "The unexamined life is not worth living." To him, a life without introspection wasn't a life at all. Because movement without meaning is wasted energy. He didn't believe in simply charging forward. He believed in pausing, observing, understanding where you are so you know where you need to go. Because a mind that never questions itself, it becomes stagnant, rigid, stuck. Modern psychology echoes this truth. Cognitive research shows that people who engage in self-reflection consistently develop higher emotional intelligence, better problem-solving abilities, greater resilience under stress. Why? Because the brain, when trained to analyze its own patterns, becomes more adaptable. It stops reacting blindly. It starts learning from experience. And most importantly, it corrects course before small errors become major setbacks. That's why the greatest leaders, thinkers, and creators from every era practice reflection, not once in a while, every day. But reflection isn't just about the past, it's about shaping the future. Look at Leonardo da Vinci, the ultimate Renaissance mind. He filled notebooks with sketches, ideas, questions, and musings. He didn't just document what he knew, he questioned everything. His genius didn't come from certainty, it came from curiosity. He understood that mastery isn't just built by learning. It's built by asking better questions, by revisiting ideas, by refining the lens through which we see the world. So how do you build a life of reflection? First, ask the right questions. Don't just ask, what happened? Ask, why did it happen? What can I learn from it? What will I do differently next time? Second, create space to reflect. This could be jouring. Taking quiet walks, or sitting still for 10 minutes in the middle of a noisy day. Growth requires pause. The mind needs space to process. Third, turn reflection into action. Insight without change is noise. Every realization must lead to a decision. Ask yourself, what next step will I take because of what I now understand? Socrates taught that without reflection, there is no wisdom. Psychology proves that the mind grows through self-observation and adjustment. Leonardo da Vinci showed that genius is not given, it is examined, refined, and built. The message is clear. Mental strength is not just about motion. It's about direction. About stopping long enough to ensure the next step is the right step. Because the strongest minds don't just act. They understand why they act. And that clarity. That's what separates force from purpose. And here lies one final truth. Discipline is not something you do. It's something you become. When focus becomes part of your identity, when resilience becomes your default, discipline is no longer effort. It's not something you fight for, it's something that flows from you. Many people struggle with self-discipline because they treat it as a push, as a battle, as a grind. But those who thrive, they've made it who they are. They no longer ask, should I wake up early? Should I keep going? They simply do. Because that's the kind of person they've decided to be. Modern behavioral science agrees. Identity-based habits, a concept popularized by James Clear in Atomic Habits, shows us this. If you want to sustain discipline long-term, don't focus on results. Focus on self-image. Don't say, I want to write a book. Say, I'm a writer. Don't say, I need to eat better. Say, I'm the kind of person who honors my health. Because the moment you shift your identity, your actions will begin to align. Effort becomes second nature, and that's when consistency becomes effortless. So now, let this be your reminder. Mental strength is not about avoiding pain. It's about meeting it with purpose. It's not about instant results. It's about showing up anyway. It's not about what the world gives you. It's about who you choose to become. The strongest minds. They're not perfect. They're persistent. They're reflective. They're patient. And above all, they're present. Instead of saying, I need to work harder, say, I am the kind of person who works hard. Instead of saying, I should be more disciplined, say, I am disciplined. Because your actions will always align with the way you see yourself. But making discipline part of your identity requires one crucial shift. You must remove negotiation. The moment you allow yourself to debate whether or not to act, you create resistance, and resistance becomes hesitation. Hesitation becomes inaction, and inaction becomes your default. The most disciplined people in the world. They don't negotiate with themselves, they act. Bruce Lee lived this. He didn't wait for motivation to train, to study, to refine his craft. He did it because discipline was who he was. He didn't leave room for excuses. He removed choice from the equation. He removed resistance by removing the option to quit. This is how you internalize discipline at the level of identity. So how do you get there? Apply these principles. Reinforce identity through repetition. The more often you act in alignment with who you want to become, the more real that identity becomes. Every disciplined choice is a vote for the future version of you. Eliminate decision fatigue, set routines, build rules, structure your environment so that you never waste energy wondering, should I do it or not? You just do it because it's what you do. Adopt the I don't miss twice rule. Missing one day is human. Missing two, that's a pattern. Don't let a slip become a slide. Stand back up, recommit, move again. Ultimately, the most disciplined people don't see self-control as a struggle. They see it as their standard. It's not something they push toward, it's something they live. Socrates taught that self-mastery comes from transforming your nature. James Clear proved that identity-based habits are the cornerstone of long-term consistency. Bruce Lee embodied the principle that when you eliminate negotiation, you eliminate friction. Their message is crystal clear. Discipline is not something you do occasionally. It's who you become when you stop needing to remind yourself, because it's just part of your identity. That's when true self-mastery begins. Not in the spotlight, but in the quiet. In the battles no one sees. In the decisions made long before the results ever show. Because strength, it's not given, it's earned. Earned in early mornings. In disciplined evenings. In saying yes to purpose and no to ease. Again and again and again. The mentally weak wait. Wait for conditions to change. Wait for motivation to show up. Wait for the path to get easier. But the mentally strong, they don't wait for the path. They build it one step at a time. Every challenge faced. Every time you choose the hard thing. Every time you turn pain into growth. You're forging yourself into something greater. Because the greatest thinkers, warriors, creators, they didn't rise by accident. Socrates sharpened his mind through relentless questioning. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire with unwavering internal control. Miyamoto Musashi became an undefeated samurai not because he chased comfort, but because he chose discipline as his way of life. They all understood one truth: the mind must be trained just like the body. Without mastery over thought, emotion, and action, there is no true strength. So now the challenge is yours. Will you shape your mind or be shaped by the world around you? Will you act with intention or drift under pressure? Will you stay stuck in old patterns or rise into something greater? The choice isn't made once. It's made daily, hourly, quietly, when no one's watching. Because mental strength, it's not about what you hope for, it's about what you train for. And the strongest minds, they don't wait for change. They create it within themselves every single day. Thank you for walking this path of power, purpose, and presence with us here at Stoic Zen. If this journey awakens something in you, share it, live it, become it. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more wisdom, more discipline, and more clarity to help you build the mind that will carry you through anything. Until next time, stay sharp, stay steady, and above all, stay true to who you're becoming.